system. But they squeezed the countries into one type, and then they looked at what happened in the intervening years and came up, you can see just about on the right, and they got a mixture of ideal types now in the countries. They tried to show how, for instance, the Spanish system, they argue, is adopting more of a land use tradition as well as an urbanism tradition. Well, they had two methods, in fact. The second method, to talk about methodological problems, this is really flawed, it's terribly flawed, and I'm looking for better ways of doing it. They had a second approach as well, which took us back to governance, and they said, well, not the legal framework, but the government framework, which is obviously closely related, but that's the important factor here. So they looked at the structure of the state and where planning was located in that at national or local levels. They looked at processes of decentralisation or regionalisation and where powers were being devolved, and cooperation between sectors and between levels of government. So it was all about governance and approaches to governance. And they devised this sort of method. They had 8 structures, 3 forms of cooperation, 5 sorts of regionalism, and they ended up with 120 different classes then, or types, which again is not very helpful, having 120. 4 is oversimplifying it, but 120 is not very helpful in understanding the differences between systems. So going back to the question I offered at the beginning, for those who've just come in, what criteria do we compare? And you won't be able to read this, but it's more of a reminder for me, I suppose, that on the left there, I've got certain sorts of criteria. The government structure, questions about subsidiarity, that is, where does the power lie in the system, the legal system, the goals of the system, the way that it operates, the impact or outcomes that it has. So I've been looking at those. But with a view to explanation, Dominic and I have also been trying to compare the differences with planning systems to other sorts of categorizations or families of nations. And a favourite one that people have is to talk, in Europe anyway, is to talk about social models. They talk about the underlying social model. What is the social model? Well, to simplify it, it's a set of values which talks about the relationships between the state, the market, and civil society. Now that varies from country to country. In some countries we're very state-centred, other countries more private. There are complex relations between those three that are sort of infused in the values of a particular country. And we see that there are big differences between the social model in somewhere like Italy and the social model in somewhere like Germany or the UK or Spain. There are different sorts of social models. And people have tried to, over the years, have also classified these. And the interesting thing is just how similar they are. That the categorizations of social models are the same as the categorizations, virtually the same, as the categorizations of planning systems. And Anna Maria, you can see there that the Netherlands comes in the other category because other researchers have not been able to classify the Netherlands in terms of a social model, so you get the same sort of problem. But I offer that as a sort of, this is the way that I'm going, just for discussion, but looking at the relationship between these underlying social models and the form of the planning system that we have. So going back to those conclusions, insufficient reflection on the method, overemphasis on government, categorizations hold more than they reveal. For the future, what I'd like to do is, through this network that I mentioned at the beginning, we will be producing a special theme edition. We've had these seminars, people have prepared papers, and we're going to have a special theme edition of a journal where we talk principally about these methodological problems of trying to compare across countries and looking to try and improve our method. I'm hoping that we might do a book from here on comparative planning systems, and because we've got a very international grouping of staff here, and we've got lots of friends also in other countries, I'm very much hoping that we can put together a group of people who'd like to contribute to some sort of international comparison on a global scale, not just on a European scale, but looking at that globally. and see if we can tie in and develop some new ideas about families or styles of planning that might be relevant outside of Europe as well. So for discussion, go back to my first question. What should we compare?